Welcome back to Small Engines Galore. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but we've been doing a ton of work on this pig. This is called Beast 2 in case you guys are new to the channel, and in this video we're going to try to finish it and get it running, because our race that we want to attend is in 1 week from today on July 1st. The plan was definitely not to cut it this close, but we did. So let me show you guys what all has been done since you guys last saw. Okay, so we're gonna move right back to the dash here. We self-tapper screwed this panel on there, put a kill switch on there, hooked up the steering a little bit. The steering wheel is 180 degrees out, but we're gonna fix that. And yeah, we got these hood mounts. There is nuts that go on these. They're just off so I can show you guys. So that comes off. And this comes off. And then you can lift up the hood to see what's underneath. So unfortunately, our old fuel pump is no good, so we took it off, and I tapped out this hole so we could fit a barbed fitting on here. This is the wrong size. So we're gonna get a -6 by 1/8 NPT fitting to screw into here, as well as tapping out this hole and sticking a set screw in it. That's in this video, as well as doing everything underneath, and I'll show you guys in a few minutes. Now, also, what we ended up doing is cutting off the axle shaft on the FNR transaxle, building this brace because the frame was bending right in there pretty badly, so we ended up getting it straight-ish. Not perfect, but it's way better than it was before. And yeah, that part of it is all happy, as well as possibly, I don't know if I got this on video or not, but we ended up getting the whole rear axle squared up with the subframe, welding in the subframe, sticking the chain on. Our most recent addition has been this electric fuel pump, which we haven't built a mount for it yet, but that is all to come in this video. In this video, we're also going to be cutting this ugly chunk of ready rod that's holding our fender off, and building a new mount for our fender, because it looks horrible like this. Eventually we'll get to be building a back panel for this, because I'm not loving how open and just kind of cobbled together it looks from the back. But yeah, we also got to do a little bit of clearancing on the fenders. It's marked out, so then we can have lots of clearance for our tires. Yeah, 40 tooth sprocket on this side at the front of the transaxle, driving a 17 on the rear axle. And yeah, I'm gonna get underneath to show you guys what all we did underneath. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the gas pedal. It's new too. Alright guys, I'm going to bring you guys underneath Beast 2, where we find an 8-inch transaxle pulley on the FNR transaxle. That's why our overdrive on these is so much, because this is a fairly deep gear reduction from there to that CTV clutch you can see on the front. CVT. Whatever, it's something with those letters. And you can see how our steering is routed through the frame and over to the rack. I'll show you guys in a few minutes. Our clutch is mounted with this plate that we cut out on the plasma table. I'll show you guys when this comes all apart, because it's got to come back apart for final welding. But yeah, all that's on there. You'll notice that the exhaust is off on this side, as well as the running board. We're going to be putting those back on in this video too. And yeah, I'm going to show you guys a different view from underneath here. Alright guys, you guys are viewing from underneath the front end of the frame. Yes, that steering rack is offset. And yes, it's for a good reason. So we can turn more left than we can right, because our turns are all left-hand curves. But also so that we could clear the clutch, because it is not... like, we can't run our steering centered, and right now, you can see there's a fairly good angle on that bar. And you guys can see our steady bearing mount right there, and yeah, that's where we got to do some final welding on this. That's it for underneath. But yeah, we got a ton of stuff to do in this video, so you guys can just tune in and watch. But yeah, we got a bunch of stuff: clutch plate, steering bracket, welding master bracket, cotter pins. We got to get about 1 million of those things. Yeah, set the sprockets, accelerator brackets for the cable, fender brackets, hook up the engine, dash reinforcing possibly, because of our steering setup here. It flexes a bit. And then weld spindle bracket slots, I'll show you guys later. Sprocket guard. Get a V-belt length, a tensioner pulley for it. Finish welding the U-joint shaft for the steering. Reinstall the running board. Fix the transaxle pulley because it's bent. Bleed the brakes, throttle cable and spring. 1/8 MPT-6 fitting. Ready rod for holding the axle in here because this one, the threads are all buggered up. You guys can see that. Slot the transaxle brackets to get our alignment on our transaxle perfect. Belt guards possibly if we need them. Tighten the U-joint for the front steering. Bolt check wiring and electrics. And that was just about 10 minutes of just thinking about what all we need to do. So I'm sure we'll run into more stuff that we need to add to the list. But for now, let's get to wrenching on this thing. Alright folks, I got our V-belt length worked out. It's the belt that goes from the back of that clutch to the transaxle. So from that black pulley to that pulley right there, and it's got to be however long this is. So I'm going to take this to my belt finder at work and see if it works or not. Worst case scenario, I do have this belt, which no, I'm not going to use it, but as a size measurement, because we do still have to put a tensioner on this. So if we have to rock this belt, we sure can. Or this belt size, sorry. We sure can. One thing checked off the list. So many other things to do. Let's start taking all of this out from underneath it now. Alright guys, I'm going to drop the clutch. It's just 2 bolts on each side. And yeah, I'll show you how the plate is all cut out and bent once it's out. Alright guys, we got our clutch dropped out. Alright guys, the clutch is dropped out. So let's take a quick look at this plate before we do more tearing down on this machine. So the clutch plate is just a CNC cut bracket with some 3/8 weld nuts on each side on the side plates. You can see it, they're different sizes. Yeah, again, it's all custom, so who knows if this will all work for you guys. It's just got slots and stuff on the bottom to hold the clutch together with 6 bolts holding it on. This is a 1-inch shaft clutch from Amazon. I don't know what the application it's supposed to be for. I think it's a Predator 212, judging by this bolt pattern, but it was 120 bucks, so I figured let's see if this will last under 20 horsepower of Fury with a heavy lead foot. Alright, so now that the clutch is out, we can have a quicker, better look at the steering. So it comes through the floor here, and it's got this steady bearing plate, which has 2 bolts that you can remove. We're not going to remove them right now, maybe in a future part of this video, because we got to weld this seam. And yeah, this bearing is pressed in on this side, and there's another one on this side, which supports the shaft. Sorry, my belt's in the way. Which goes to the steering rack, which has these 2 tiny 5mm metric bolts, and it is welded to the frame. And because I gotta drill a hole for the front end on the other side, I'll show you in a minute. We're gonna pull the engine back out again for like the 30th time. So yeah, that one I gotta make that hole line up. And to do that, I gotta have this pig out of this frame. So then I'll show you guys the steering and everything, and we'll probably get to do the wiring while the engine's out. Oh yeah, I figured while we were at it, I would just show you guys how well this fuel pump works. So we're going to take our line and dip it in this jerry can. We'll take a look at it in a minute. So our fuel pump is on our third switch on this. Alright, and in 30 seconds, we've taken this empty jerry can, maybe you guys can hear the fuel in it, maybe not, but there is a fair amount of fuel in there. Alright, so now we have this absolute rat's nest of wiring. There's a lot of different wires going a lot of different places. Also, I'm going to show you guys just how the steering is routed and all that. I'm going to move our fuel line off. Hopefully it doesn't puke a ton more fuel out. And yeah, we're just going to turn the wheel a little bit. So you can see this shaft is turning at the steering wheel attached, which goes down to the steady bearing. And you're literally looking at the knuckle that attaches to the steering rack. That's how our steering's hooked up. It's pretty simple, but a little bit complicated at the same time. Keep it simple, stupid. Alright folks, I got that hole drilled, so now there's a bolt in there. And yeah, it's just gotta get tight, and then we're done with this front end. Alright guys, now we're gonna get to bleeding the brakes. Because that hole is done, and I'm gonna touch wiring once the engine is back in, so that I know where everything's gotta hook up. I guess I could do that with the engine out, but we're gonna do the brakes first, because I hate doing wiring. So what we're gonna be doing is sticking some of this STP.3 brake fluid into the master cylinder reservoir, which is gonna go down, hopefully not leak at this connection, go into the master, hopefully not leak at this connection, go back in to another connection in there that hopefully is not going to break, and another one behind that, because there's a block that connects two lines, and then back to the master cylinder, sorry, the brake caliper, where it's hopefully not going to break as well. So we're going to just crack open this brake fluid right now. I'm going to try to undo the child lock with one hand. Haha, there we go. I'm going to pour a little bit of this stuff in the master cylinder reservoir. It's not leaking yet. Oops. Pour it on the floor. Oop, overfilled it. So far, another one of those connections are leaking. We're gonna pump the brakes a few times. Oh my goodness. What a mess. This fuel line won't stop puking fluid now. It's just like gravity feeding out of the tank or something. No. Anyways, I'm going to fix this fuel line issue, and then I'm going to show you guys bleeding the brakes. Alright guys, we got a bit of kitty litter on that fluid mess. I got to spread that around in a few minutes once it's done absorbing some of that fluid, brake fluid and gasoline, which will eventually evaporate, by the way. And yeah, now I got to get all this brake fluid off everything, because I forgot to finish welding that bracket. So the little tack's busted off of it. It's got to sit sort of like that, and then I gotta lay a bead down there. So yeah, that's next on the list, guys. Alright folks, I got that edge burned in, but as you guys can see, I have a massive brake fluid leak. We thought that the copper washers would fix that. I'm just gonna try tightening it more, because that's what's happened before that's fixed it. Thankfully we have our Zorball here to absorb any mess that we make. Well, folks, it's tight again. Like, really tight. And we still have a leak.
The next day.
Hello, kitties. Good morning. You can't come in. No. You cannot. No. Ah. You have to stay outside. Borb. Alright, come on, Borb. Come on, man. It's not your food. Dummy. Hey, how you doing? No, you can't go back downstairs. Get over here. Let's go. You're going back outside. Do, 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 do. Ain't you jealous? No, you gotta go back out. Hello? Hello? Mmm. Hello, little house cat. Are you scared? I'm going to walk towards you. Literally 3 steps. Alright guys, it's the next morning in the shop. I got a couple of things ticked off of the list. Tightening the U-joint for the steering shaft. Welded the master bracket yesterday. Welded the spindle bracket slots today. Which is just in there. And now we're going to move on to fitting the running board around this brace. Because where it did weld on, you can see all the bare metal. That is where it would weld on before. It was kind of right in there. And this is in the way now. So my idea is we're going to shorten the running board so it welds on over here. Because then we can get this brace out and still have enough foot room to utilize it. Because the factory running boards only did come to about here. So it's good. We can shorten it up. It's right here on the table, on the welding bench, and I cut all the tacks for the expanded metal, so we can cut one more tack down below on this tube, move it down as far as we need to, and then cut everything else to length. Weld it back together, super simple. Alright guys, I got the tube cut off of the running board that went from here out, and we're going to move it into these white lines here, which are marked with soapstone. That's where we gotta cut all of this expanded and this off too. So first thing I'm gonna do is just cut all this off and then fit the tube in underneath it like that. Let's get to it. Alright guys, we did end up getting this section of the running board cut off the end here. Sadly, we did wreck a zip disc, but it was kind of already done. So I'm just gonna swap to the welder, and we're gonna zap it onto here and test fit this on the mower. Alright guys, fast forward it a little bit. It is welded together and it's tacked onto the frame here, but as you can see, we cleared our strengthening subframe connector thing, so we can now finish welding this, and we can then check running board off of the list here. Also, I gotta put the exhaust back on this. I forgot about that. Alright guys, next thing on the list is slicing and dicing these fenders. We're just gonna cut on the white line and I'll show you after we're done this, because I'm a single cameraman today, so I also got a ton of stuff to do on this, so yeah, you guys are gonna see the aftermath in a few minutes. Oh yeah, and we're cutting this stupid ready rod off the back of it too. Alright guys, our fenders are cut. I'm gonna do a little bit of welding in these cracks that we cut with a zip disc too far, or that I cut with a zip disc too far. This one was from the previous cuts, and this one was from this time. So I'm gonna fix those and then grind those down, and you guys will see it then. And yeah guys, here's our result. I realized that there is too much material taken from right there, so eventually it'll probably get material in there. And yes, I do realize that this still looks like an absolute hack job, because it is. So when the fender is up in its mounting position, we can see that there's tire clearance all the way around. And yeah, that lip is going to get bent up so that it doesn't touch tire. So once I bolt these on, we're going to start building brackets that go from here to here to attach the back end of the fenders so that they can be more stable. Alright guys, we're going to get to doing this. Oh, here comes one of my favorite songs. That's on this disc, that is. All along and lonesome highway, east of Omaha, you can listen to the engine moaning out its one-note song. You can think about the woman of the girl you knew the night before. While your thoughts will soon be wandering where they always do when you're riding 16 hours and there's nothing much to do. You don't feel much like riding, you just wish the trip was through. So you guys know the trend of white guys can't sing, white guys can't dance. I kind of fit into that very well. Alright guys, I found a little bracket that I just tack welded 2 little tacks on there just to test fit, and that's going to be our rear fender mount because we now have clearance everywhere on the wheel arch. So yeah, it works out to the perfect length and height. So now I just gotta undo this bolt and tilt the seat to fuel up because my fuel cap's under here, but that's not too big a deal. Alright, we got this piece in, so yeah, a few more welds on it and it is sturdy, sort of. I mean, yeah, the fenders can still move, but whatever, I'm checking it off the list. Fender brackets and trim fenders, done. And until Grandpa gets here at some point this week, that's about all we can do on this. So now we're waiting until he can get here. And the time is ticking, but it's okay, he's a busy guy, so we'll see. I mean, I have no complaints here. He's put 50 or 60 hours in. Welcome back guys, this is Thursday night, and as you can see we have a little bit done. So we ended up picking up a half link for the chain because it was too loose. So that is installed in here, right there. And now we have a chain guard. Thanks Grandpa for building that. We also have gas pedal brackets. We dropped the engine in. We're about to put the clutch up. The exhaust is on one side. The other side still got to get welded up. I got my fitting in for the fuel system. And we still got to hook up the cable. We started building a bracket to hold the other cable. It's like a pinch bracket. Anyways, that's all going to get done tomorrow too. We ended up sharing a flywheel key on this engine. So I went and got a few from work today and swapped a flywheel key into here. That's why all the covers are off. So I also got to hook up a kill wire coming off the coil, go into the kill switch, and then a ground is already hooked up down here to all the other grounds. Yeah, what else? So he's gonna brace up the slot because that's where all of our flex and dash is from. So that covers our dash reinforcing. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff done, actually, for working both of those days. But yeah, he's got a lot of stuff checked off here. But yeah, we ended up needing a 52-inch belt by 5/8, which is right here, which will go to the input shaft down here from our clutch back to there, if you get what I mean. And yeah, the engine's bolted down. I also got cotter pins to do all the front end bits, and those two castle nuts on the back. So I'll end up doing those and checking that off the list too. But yeah, she's getting real close till we can test it and see what all is not happy working with each other. Let's get into finishing putting the covers back on the engine, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, we are actually not going to put the covers back on the engine yet, because we still got to do our wiring for the charging system, which comes out right here. You can see the stator wiring. We have a red wire right here, which is our charging wire. That's the one we're going to splice into to charge our battery up. The stator was working in this originally, so hopefully it still works. And we got to hook up a kill wire coming off the bottom of this coil back up to our kill still. I probably mentioned that already. And yeah, let's get into doing those, I guess. Alright guys, I just went ahead and popped the flywheel back off, stuck the connector on for this charging wire, went to pull it, out it came. So now I gotta go to town and get new connectors at some point. Again, clock's ticking, who knows how long that'll take. But yeah, so I gotta get that hooked up and run to the battery again, because old connector, no good. Alright guys, I got the clutch mounted back underneath here. We're now gonna see if our 52-inch belt, which is what it measured to, will fit on here. Even if we have to spiral it, I really don't care. Alright, let's go. Ugh. It is fairly tight on there. I'm gonna spiral it on off camera. Alright guys, I'm not gonna lie, that was a bit tough to get on, but it is on now, and it does fit, which is good. We just may not need a tensioner, because it's pretty tight, but that's okay. This one doesn't have to be loose at all, for any reason. Yeah, so it's not that far off from running. I have to, sorry about the light, I still have to finish fuel system, tap that third hole from the left to accept the set screw or plug it off somehow else, and then I can have fuel run up to here bypassing the original fuel pump. And then theoretically, after we hook up the kill wire, we can possibly run the engine. Sorry guys, I did not realize that I had lost all the footage for this, but I guess the camera wasn't videotaping. Or maybe it just wasn't saving it. Anyways, we ended up doing a lot of things today. We ended up tapping out this hole, sticking a bolt through it with an O-ring on it, which will hopefully hold the fuel. And then we found inside here, there's a hole similar to that one. Sorry about the shakiness. That fuel was leaking out of. So as you can see, we epoxied it shut. I hope that Clear JB Weld is fuel safe. I don't remember. Anyways, if it's not, leave it in the comments, please, because this is going to be entertaining when this all blows up if it doesn't do that and it's just puking fuel out like a steady stream out here when the fuel pump's on. Anyways, that's all that we ended up doing on the carb today. aside from having it apart a million times. I have a kill wire hooked up. I have a start switch hooked up. The rest of the fuel system is done. The mounts are in for the engine. And when we went to fire it up today, we did get that rear axle spinning for about 30 seconds, but that's about it. And we ended up needing to push the clutch backwards, which meant dropping it back out, slotting the holes so it can go backwards, because we ended up having to rev the engine up fairly high to get it to start spinning that, which was going to affect really how much is the clutch going to engage before the engine's revved out, which we didn't know because we don't have a tach on this thing, so we don't know how high it was actually revving, but it seemed like it was higher than it should be. So we ended up moving it back, and in doing that we ended up having to cut the running board off again, so that we could slot the holes backwards because it was going to hit the running board. Also, Grandpa built this nice bracket for the master cylinder reservoir. Simple bracket, but still holds it up nice. He shortened the hose, made it all work. We do still have a little brake leak. We've been messing with this for about 3 hours today before he went home just now. And yeah, we have a couple of O-rings in there. Turns out that there was an O-ring groove inside of the master cylinder, kind of inside of that edge, that there was no O-ring in there, and that's why our brakes were leaking. We tried all different kinds of washers, none of them would seal it. So now that we have an O-ring in there and another O-ring before the line here, and then another one on this side to replace the washer, it's now leaking a little bit. It's not anywhere near as bad as it was before. Like, I can hold fluid in there a little bit. Still gotta bleed the brakes. And yeah, that's all that done. We do have our mounting bolt for the rear axle done. It's got 2 nuts on this side, and the other side is basically, it's a long bolt because we welded a nut to the end of it. So we can take these out and then slide it the other direction. Apparently this isn't tight. Again, I'm gonna have to do that on my bolt check, is just check everything is tight. With this transaxle bracket, you can see even with my bent frame that it's not straight. So I do have to try to shim the front down on here because our pulley angle, it's about 1/4 of an inch out. So yeah, that kind of sucks. But underneath we ended up, like I said, slotting that, and now we have it all back here. We built a tensioner pulley setup, but it's still got to get welded on. But he doesn't want to weld it on yet until after this pulley is sorted out. And we really don't know if it's straight or not, because it does have a wobble to it. So the pulley itself is bent a little bit. And worst case scenario, if we have to, we're going to be building a cage going around the belt to keep it on the pulley. Because if it's bent enough that it's throwing belts off, we can't have that happen in the middle of a race. Again, too much of me talking. Let's see, what else did I do? Well, you guys were off camera, because yeah, right, so Grandpa welded in this dash reinforcement plate. So now our dash is fairly sturdy, a lot more sturdy than it was before, because there was that slot in there. If you look on a Craftsman dash, right there, there's that slot, which is for the mower deck engagement, and that was making our dash super flimsy, so it's now got a plate tack welded in, which holds it steady. Yeah, so with our throttle pedal, here's what it all looks like assembled. Guys, here's what our gas pedal setup looks like. This is the other thing that we got to today. So we got our cable that gets pinched there. We have some adjustment there. A spring, along with the end of the cable pokes through. We gotta crush this gap down with water pump pliers or something tomorrow. But yeah, again, something else to do tomorrow. And we need to shorten the cable because it's really long. You can see that. And it only needs to be about that long, because that's where we gotta attach our cable to that hole right there. And yeah, that's it on the throttle cable setup. But yeah, that's all we got done today, which is a fair amount, actually, considering he was here for 4 or 5 hours again today. But yeah, now here's just some shots of what all we got done. I woke up this morning, got out of my house, ate my breakfast, sat on the quad, sat on the tractor, jumped in the grass, looked for mice, found one and ate it, looked for bugs, ate those too, said hi to my human again, got my belly rub, followed him back to the garage. Forb, come, let's go. Got my back scratched. Went to the shop, found my sister, who bit my balls. I smacked her and tackled her. Then I tackled her again. Then I sat there and pounced on her again. Sat on her face. Flipped her over again. Now she knows never to bite my balls. Got into a fight with my brother too. He ran off. It ended quickly. Drank some water. Almost fell in the dish. My brother apologized. Drank more water. Ran away from my brother. Climbed in the fish tank. Hid from my brother. Farted in my brother's face. And ran away. Fell in the grass. Looked for more bugs. Found my brother. Slept under the shelter to keep the hot sun away. Ate more food, then went to bed. That's a typical Borb day. Alright guys, this is Saturday, just after noon. Here is what we ended up doing today on Beast 2. Or actually last night. First off, I'm going to show you guys what all we did last night. So last night, this engine decided to shear another flywheel key. So that's 2 now in less than a week. So we ended up making this mark on here so that we can see if it sheared one again or not, because we spent about 4 hours yesterday changing fuel mixture stuff, thinking that it was just that, not the spark timing. But yeah, we had good fuel, good spark, good compression, and we weren't sure on the timing, so we pulled the nut off of here. Can I mention that these threads are completely screwed up now? And yeah, that was out, and we could see that it was 90 degrees off of center, so it's supposed to be where this white line is, and it was about where this bolt hole is, as far as relation to the crank. And then after we did all of that, we picked up some brass washers to try to fix the brake leak. That did not work. Sorry, they're copper, but yeah, they did not work. So I just gooed it all up with this awesome Toyota sealer. Seal Packaging 103. It works great. It's about $50 or $60 a tube, so it's super expensive, but it does seal stuff like that and our fuel leak that we had here. is now fixed. But yeah, we had it running today, about ready to take it for a test drive, and we were running it on the jack stands with the wheels on and everything. And we just weren't getting a lot of tire rotation RPM. So we'd fired it up and ran it. Yeah, the cables and everything are all done too. And when we were running it, we could run it basically flat out, and it would turn the tire like maybe a touch faster than that. Like we could still read the lettering on it when it was turning. So that's no good. And our clutches are working. We did have that going today. We didn't get any of this on video because Grandpa was out again. But yeah, we ended up doing a lot of stuff on it today. And our solution to our problem with no tire rotation here, because we have a huge overdrive 40 tooth driving a 17 tooth on there, I thought that would compensate maybe for the giant ratio of deep gear reduction on the pulley setup. Anyways, we're going to take this 3.5 inch pulley, cut the center out of this 8 inch pulley, and weld it into this 3.5 inch pulley to jam it back underneath there. And we're getting the right size belt again. This time it's calculated to be a 38, but who knows what it'll actually be. So we're going to pick up every belt just a bit longer than 38, all the way up to 42, 44 inches that we can find in 5/8, one of every size, so that we can just get the right belt to fit on here, so that we can have these wheels spinning fast enough that we cannot read the lettering, because that was a bit disappointing today. But otherwise, this thing is about ready to take for a test drive and to run at Wimborne. Also, we had too much fuel pressure, so we added a resistor in line for our fuel pump. So now we have 8 volts getting to it instead of 13. So now it's pumping about 2/3 of the fuel that it did before, which seems to be working really well in this application. And now, take a look at this. Fuel pump on, choke on. Okay, it's still cold, so it wanted to choke still.
The next day.
Alright, welcome back, guys. We just came back from Wimborne. Here's our Beast 2 project. Sadly, we didn't make it to Wimborne with Beast 2 this year because I guess the timeline was too tight and I picked the wrong parts, is the biggest thing. So that clutch is underneath there. It won't hold up to the power of the twin or the torque coming from the axle being all solid. The back axle itself, it's tweaking in the frame, so we gotta put some supports or something on that. So I ended up just calling out to a bunch of my friends that I built mowers for and came up with this. So this is a 1998 Craftsman that I built previously.